Hello and welcome to it. You're watching #Africa. In the next 15 minutes, we'll be taking a comprehensive look at some of the stories that dominated headlines across the continent. I'm Tutuzile Ramela. We begin at The Hague, where former Congolese President Jean-Pierre Bemba has been acquitted of war crimes by the International Criminal Court. Bemba has been in the court's detention center since his arrest in 2008. Now, in 2016, he was convicted of war crimes and crimes against humanity and sentenced to 18 years in prison. A militia he had commanded committed mass murder and rape in neighboring Central African Republic. However, Bemba faces sentencing for a charge of witness tampering during the trial, which could result in a maximum 5-year jail term and a fine. Amnesty International says security forces are battling to contain the conflict in the Cameroons. The escalating violence has led to armed separatists and security forces attacking and torturing people in the country's English-speaking regions. Activists claim the country's French-speaking majority is marginalizing the Anglophone minority. Amnesty's report alleges the military has destroyed villages and that detainees have been blindfolded and severely beaten with guns, wire and sticks. And Egypt has been ranked the safest country in Africa and safer than both the UK and the US. The annual Gallup Global Law and Order poll asked people if they felt safe walking at night and whether they or their families had been victims of crime. The survey placed Egypt 16th out of 135 countries, while the UK was 21st and the US 35th. South Sudan was ranked the least safe country in the continent. Now, as South Africa celebrates Youth Month, we sat down with Jamaican dub poet Muta Baruka to discuss the significance of June 16, 1976. If you have never been inside the walls of a prison, I'll try and describe it as accurately as I possibly can. It's freezing, the space tiny. In 1910, this here very building was constructed, and a number of women were kept here for many crimes. Some, their only crime was looking good, while others, their crime was taking to the streets of Soweto in 1976 on June the 16th. Today on #Africa, we're in conversation with Jamaican dub poet Muta Baruka as we reflect on the events of that day and how it has led us to where we are. Papa Muta Baruka, thank you so much for joining us on #Africa. Such a great pleasure to be chatting to you today. I want to start with this. What does Africa mean to you?
Africa means life. Africa is the original birthplace of all human beings, so I am part of that original birthplace. Even though I was not born in Africa, but Africa was born in me. So I see myself as an African first. You know, even though I'm from Jamaica, but Jamaica is just part of the problem that we were taken from here and carried there, and they drop us off different places. But even though we are not in Africa, we represent Africa totally and fully.
When we talk about consciousness as a people, what are we talking about?
Well, you know, when we say conscious, it means it's like I was hit down, and you wake up, you get conscious. So that is one aspect of conscious. The other aspect of consciousness is going into self, and you reaffirm who you are as a person, and what is your relationship to people, life, because that is the source of our consciousness. If you're not going into a spiritual awakening of self, knowing that when you say God, who you're speaking to, when you say love, who you're speaking to, what is love? What is God to you? You have to find God inside of yourself. Our Pan-Africanist father, Marcus Garvey, said, if you have no confidence in yourself, you are twice defeated in the race of life.
What is freedom? Is Africa free?
Somewhere along the line, the leaders of the struggle for liberation, they dropped the ball. They dropped the ball where I think we're searching for a political power to change things. but in gaining that power. You know, they say, power corrupts, absolute power corrupt absolutely. And the fight should be for the acquisition of the land that was taken from African people. Because land is power. If you don't have any land, you don't have any power. That is what it's all about. Most of the war that has been fought in the world was fought over land. So if you have political power and you don't have any land, you're still back into apartheid because the people who have the land will be best able to control the economy. Because the economy is built from the land, whether it's the mining of gold, the mining of silver, or it's agriculture. But the basis of any country comes from how much land is used to develop the people. And when you see all these skyscrapers going up, who own the land that the skyscrapers are going up on? It's not the African people. So the most important part of the Uhuru that we speak about is to get back the land.
As we celebrate Youth Day, what is your message to the youth of Africa?
The message to the youth, I want to give a message to the parent, because what the children do is reflective of what they were taught. Children do what they learn. And if the family structure is not guiding them properly, then the children will become what we see they are now. So it's not a matter of what is the message to the children. It's a matter of what are the parents doing to stop the problem that confront children now. You see, because children 14, 10, 12, even 20 still don't understand what they want and need. And it is the family that is supposed to guide them.
Mutabaruka is a Jamaican dub poet. Here's what's coming up after the break. Former refugees share their stories of suffering, perseverance and achievement against the odds. And we'll tell you about a Somali man who used the month of Ramadan to give back to Mogadishu's poorest residents. Welcome back and thanks for staying with #Africa. In Kenya, there was some inspiration for refugees this past week. Teachers, filmmakers, models as well as poets took part in the first TEDx event at a refugee camp.
TED Talks have taken the world by storm. And this past week, TEDx came to Kakuma in Kenya, a sprawling refugee camp home to 185,000 people. They shared their own stories of suffering, perseverance, and achievement against the odds. Among the speakers was a refugee and teacher from South Sudan who spoke of the power of education.
Education heals. The school environment gives you a focus ahead. Let's take it this way. When you're busy solving mathematical equations and you are memorizing poetry, you forget the violence that you witnessed back home. And that is the power of education. It creates this place for peace.
The event was organized by the UN Refugee Agency and live-streamed to audiences around the world to highlight the plight of refugees.
This provided me the opportunity to be able to guide my people, to be able to speak to HCR, to be able to speak to the national government, to see how we can be able to develop a program that is going to be not only supportive to refugees, but also provides the support to local communities in a way that they live as a community.
Refugees shared stories of being forced to leave home due to war. They battled to rebuild their lives and the desire to return home and rebuild their countries.
My message to my fellow refugees and young women: do your best to make your life here where you are now. Don't wait for tomorrow. Use every opportunity that you have and never, ever give up. Your dreams are valid too. Thank you.
There are at least 22 million refugees around the world.
Indeed, your dreams are valid. Let's take a quick look at what's been happening on social media this week. The World Cup bug has bitten, with the 2018 games kicking off in Moscow on Thursday. Soccer lovers are talking about who their money is on this year, and we stay with that Soccer World Cup theme. There have been mixed reaction about African countries' failure to support Morocco's bid to host the 2026 World Cup. South Africa and all the COSAFA nations refrained from voting for Morocco. As a result, the US, Mexico and Canada won their joint bid by 34 votes to 65 to become the 2026 hosts. Some Africans see this as a betrayal of Pan-Africanist values. And finally, in a rather unusual twist, 2 Ethiopian bank robbers found themselves in heavy traffic. Their getaway car collided with another vehicle. The robbers tried to run away but were apprehended by bystanders. Police recovered about 2.4 million rand the robbers had stolen from Abyssinia Bank. Muslims around the world have celebrated the festival of Eid at the end of Ramadan. The month of fasting ended on Friday evening. Muslims usually break the fast with a large meal, but not everyone can afford to do so. In the Somali capital, one man has made it his mission to ensure some of Mogadishu's poor have a proper meal at the end of the fast.
Meet Ahmed Hussein Mohammed, a resident of Somalia's capital, where poverty is rife. And so, he decided to use the month of Ramadan to make a difference in the lives of some of Mogadishu's impoverished residents. Before breaking his fast every day, Ahmed and his friends would leave work in the afternoon and volunteer to cook and distribute food. The project fed about 50 mouths every day. The marketing executive saved for a year to fund the meals.
sababta ugu muhiimsan ee ugu dhalisay in dadka danyarta ah caawiyo waxay tahay in codkooda uusan gaaraynin meel dheer in aysan haysanin facility ama qarashaadkii ee bisha Ramadan ay ku guda lahaayeen ama noloshooda ay ku maareey lahaayeen in dadka intooda badan aysan soo fiirin dadka danyarta ah gaar ahaan dadka jidadka fadhiya marka waxaan ogaaday in aan leeyahay awoodda saxda ah ee aan ku caawin karo dadka danyarta.
Muslims who can afford to do so are obliged to give alms, and many do so during Ramadan. Thanks to Ahmed, people like Mariama Ali have been able to break their fast during the month. Ahmed wants to feed more people, but lacks the funding.
isku dayayna inaan anfurno dadka danyarta ee jidadka fadhiyo waxaa ka mid ah wixii aad ugu soo tala gashay in aad dadka ku caawisid iyo dadka aad rabtid in aad caawisid waxaa badanahay dadka aad rabtid in aad caawisid sababtay tahay marka aad rabtid inaad 10 qof ama 20 qoys aad caawisid waxaa arkaysaa 20 kale oo qoys oo meesha imaanaya marka waxaa kugu adkaanayso in aad isku balance gareysid wixii aad waday iyo 40 qoys oo meesha imaada.
Residents of Mogadishu have been rebuilding their lives since African Union troops gained control of the city from Al-Shabaab militants in 2011. But millions in Somalia remain trapped in poverty as the country continues to battle with famine and ongoing attacks by Al-Shabaab.
And that's it from us for now. Do stay tuned to ENCA for all the latest news. Take care and goodbye.